Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and we're going to do something a little different today for the game that I want to talk about. That game is Marvel Dice Masters Avengers vs. X-Men. Now, this game is the new hotness. It's what everyone is talking about. It's at the top of the hotness list on Board Game Geek, and it's, more importantly, I guess, and pertinent to this, is that it is sold out everywhere. The reason for this is because WizKids, the company that developed it, it's also designed, I'll mention now, by Mike Elliott and Eric Lang. They severely underestimated the demand for this game. I'm taking them at their word on this, and therefore distributors were not able to get enough copies to meet the demand. I had the game pre-ordered, and everything, if you didn't pre-order by a certain time, everything was back-ordered. So there's no telling when it's going to come out. It could be sometime in May, late May, early June is what I had read. But the point being is that I don't actually have my physical copy of this game yet. That does not mean I haven't played it, though. I've actually played it several times. I played it originally in a tournament setting where I lost horribly. And this was like not a prototype of the game, but early copy of the game. Then I was actually able to play a friend's copy who was able to get a hold of it yesterday. Played a few times, did much, much better. But I was unfortunately not able to hold on to the copy long enough to, or borrow it from him long enough to do the review for this. So I still wanted to get my thoughts about the game out there because it's the new hotness. I really don't want to wait a month or two in order to talk about it. And a lot of people, because there's such a shortage, there's probably going to be scalping of it being done on eBay as we speak. And I should mention that actually you can easily get boosters of this game. You can buy whole boxes. They call them the gravity feed booster boxes of this game. That's not a problem. It's the starter set. And unfortunately, unlike other types of collectible games, this one really, you do need the starter set because it comes with the basic dice that you desperately need to play. So you can't just go out and buy a bunch of boosters and cobble something together unless you want to proxy in the basic dice. But in any event, I still wanted to talk about the game, give you my review. I'm not going to do an overview, obviously, with showing all the components because I just don't have them. I'll probably, marking this as a preliminary review because I'll probably do a full review like I normally do later on when I actually get the base set into my hands. But in any case, if you wanted to see an overview, I apologize. You don't have to watch the rest of this. But if you just want to know what my thoughts are, then stick around. I'll talk about the game a little bit first. So if you don't know what the game is, or if you just don't know all the different details of it, I'll just give you a little basic overview. It's a two-player dice game from WizKids. Like I said, it's designed by Mike Elliott and Eric Lang, and this is based off of their Couriers system. Now, a lot of people are going to say that it's not that similar to Couriers. I completely disagree. This is very, very similar to Couriers. There are a lot of similarities. I would say that it's Couriers with a touch of Magic the Gathering. All right, down to the fact that what it is that each player takes control of what the rulebook would call a mastermind, so it's like a reverse of Legendary, who is fielding these teams of superheroes and supervillains. As the name of the game implies, it's a lot of X-Men and a lot of Avengers, but there's also some sort of tangential characters like Spider-Man and Green Goblin, so who knows. But you're taking control of these characters, and you're trying to use these characters to knock out your opponent's life points, which is 20 life points, just like Magic. But everything else works very, very similar to Couriers. You'll start off with this set of 8 basic dice, and those basic dice are going to provide you energy, and also, they're called sidekick dice because they're energy and also give you little sidekick pawns, just like Warriors. And on the energy comes in multiple different forms. You have they come in different symbols. So there's like one that looks like a mask. There's one that looks like a thunderbolt. One that looks like a fist. And basically, there's a lot of energy matching in this game because you can only field certain heroes if you have at least one of those types of energies. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So when you only have those original basic dice, all you can do is try to field your pawns, your sidekicks, which basically works just like Warriors, where up on the top corner of the die you have the energy cost that's required to field those dice. Then you have attack and defense. But you could also use your energy to buy newer and better dice from your superhero cards. Now, each player is going to have a team of hero and villain cards. We'll just call them hero cards just in general. But you'll have these hero cards. You'll have a team of 8 that'll be out there. And now, each of the cards, depending on who you're playing as, will be different. Actually, what it is that each named hero or villain has multiple different cards of different rarities in this game. And each card will do something different and will actually have different costs associated with it as well, but the dice will all be the same. It's just a matter of, much like in Quarriors, how there are different cards for every monster that you try to capture out in the wilds. These will have different cards, but with using the same dice. And each card will also have a limit of how many dice you can actually have on that card available for purchase. And this is where some of the collectible aspect comes in, because you might need to buy more boosters just to have more dice to put onto these cards. But in any case, you'll have that maximum amount of dice, and depending on what kind of tournament drafting and things you do, you might even have less dice even if you have access to more dice. That just depends on how you're playing the game. But the premise is always the same. You're rolling your dice trying to get, not just field your sidekicks, but use that energy to buy these better dice. Then they go into your dice bag. Now, the game comes with these very, very poor substandard paper bags that you use to throw the dice into. I didn't actually use them myself in the games that I played, because in both instances, in both different scenarios I played, we had actual nice felt pouches to throw the dice in, so I recommend that right away. But and everything takes place on these, either they'll be paper mats or they will eventually sell nicer mats as well. In any event, I'm getting kind of sidetracked, but once you have these better dice, you'll throw them into your bag or pouch or whatever you're using, and then just like in a deck building or dice building game like Warriors, you'll try to draw them on future turns and roll them out into the world and get this. The superhero dice also have energy faces as well, but they also have their character faces, which have much better attack power, but also and defense power, but also higher fielding costs as well to put them out into the field in order to attack your opponent. And of course, your opponent is doing the same thing at the same time, is going to have defenders out there. You must choose whether or not you're going to, if you choose to attack with someone, you're not going to be able to block with them on a later turn, like magic. And then your opponent will have the chance to respond by potentially blocking with their people they haven't blocked with as well. Also, much like in Magic, when you attack, you can choose to block. You can have, it's basically 1-to-1 blocking, or you can't have one dude block 3 other guys, but you could have multiple blockers block one guy, and then you dispense your the attacker dispenses damage as he sees fit, and so do the blockers as well, trying to try to knock out as many dice as you can, or just prevent damage to yourself as well. Any unblocked dice characters that go through knock down your hit points. Now, even if you knock out a die, there's a special area that's the whole game is basically about putting dice in different areas. They go from your ready zone into the field, into the attack zone, back into your bag, and then there's also the KO zone, where if someone gets KO'd, they don't go back to your bag or discard to go back into your dice pool or bag. They actually go back into the ready area. So even if you block and destroy a character, or attack and destroy a character, and be very happy that they're out of the way, it's very likely that they're going to come back, because when a die is in your ready area, you get to pick that up immediately on your next turn and roll it with the rest of the dice that you draw. So it's likely that you're going to have to deal with it in some way or the other, even if they just give your opponent more energy. So that's basically the game. There is a couple of other little foibles. Now, there are some sort of I don't want to say generic, but general cards that go in the center of the two different play areas for each player, and those will have power effects. I believe there's 4 cards you always use, and they're like special power dice that each player can purchase and put into their die pool, and there'll be things like force field or some attacking. Think of them as spells, where they're not really characters, but they might have very cool special effects that you use to enhance your characters and also give you more and better energy than what you already had. There's also things called global effects, which is that some character cards will have global power effects that each player can make use of no matter where the character card is. And actually, that's the way that we were playing it. It seems a little bit weird, but I'm not really. It's a rule that I'm not really keen on. But it's basically just, if you're willing to spend, it's usually certain types of energy, like the mask energy or the lightning bolt energy. You can do a global effect to all the different characters, to whatever the effect happens to be. It could be increasing your attack, increasing your defense, forcing an attacker to not attack anymore, and so on. So you have all these different things going on, a lot of different specific particular powers of different characters. There's characters like that will make you spin down your die, which is to say you de-level him down. The card will show you the different levels of the dice, so you know what each face is, and it will make you spin down to the next level. And if that makes your die not a character anymore, it's essentially knocked out, I believe. Or in some cases they say you can't do that. You can't spin it down to it's always nothing. But that's essentially the game. You're trying your best to field your most powerful characters, use their special abilities, rip through your opponent's defenses, attack him, knock down his life points. That's Marvel Dice Masters. So that's just a little talk about the game. So what do I actually think about it? Well, it's a very, very fun game. Is it worth all the hype? I actually think not, just because this game has existed for a very long time, and it's called Quarriors. I love Quarriors. Don't get me wrong, I have it on my shelf. That's just the Quarterfacts box, but I have more than that in that box. And it's very, very fun. I would say that Marvel Dice Masters is probably better than it, as a matter of fact, just because of the theme. Quarriors has a very generic fantasy theme that, with just like with the letter Q thrown on every single monster, things like that, which is pretty aggravating. But I like the game a lot, and it is definitely more of a deck builder than what the Marvel Dice Masters is. Marvel Dice Masters has taken that deck building, dice building mechanic, we'll just say deck building, and sort of just distilled it down and mixed it with that Magic the Gathering flavor of attacking your opponent. It's actually like the entire combat step of Quarriors sort of blossomed out in a grandiose, more epic scale. And at the same time, it's just one-on-one. Whereas Quarriors can go up to 4 players, this is strictly made just for one-on-one. It's just that tense sort of back and forth, just like Magic. And I'm okay. I mean, I keep saying that this is similar to Quarriors and Magic. I'm okay if it's borrowing from those two games because I'm not as big a Magic the Gathering fan as I used to be, but both of those games, Magic and Quarriors, are excellent games. And certainly, Mike Elliott and Eric Lang are experts at card games and, using those sort of card game mechanics with dice. So they're the two pros at this, and they certainly know what they're doing, and I think they did a very, very good job. This is a fun game. Thematically speaking, I mean, it does feel, I don't know, it's kind of weird. In a sense, I want to say that this is just sort of a pasted-on theme. Only because, again, I've seen this in Quarriors. It's only it was like weird fantasy creatures instead of superheroes. But it is really cool having all those superhero cards out. And having the special power cards and, having the different symbols on the die. All these things might seem a little bit superficial, but it helps, and it does help get that theme across. And, it's very cool to think about all the different types of heroes, and I don't know if they're ever going to get more than the Marvel license, like the DC license possibly, but just having all those possibilities, or even other types of other genres and, different TV shows and comic books, whatever it might be, having those integrated into the system would be very, very cool. So I like those possibilities. Touching on that a little bit, the collectible aspect. Now, again, I not having been into this and buying boosters or not, I can't really speak to that too much, but I have heard tell that supposedly the rares and the ultra rares are not that much better than any of the other cards in the game. So if you just want to play the game, and even in a competitive setting, you're not going to do that poorly. That hasn't necessarily been my experience now, because I did draft, especially in the tournament, I drafted a couple of rare cards that seemed really, really good. Better than the others. Like a Wolverine card that said if he attacks alone, he gets +4 attack and defense. I was like, what? But all of the really powerful cards in this game cost a lot to field. And I would say part of the reason I did so horribly in the tournament was because I was drafted these really powerful characters like the Ultimate Colossus card. And I think that was maybe one step below the Ultimate Wolverine card. But they were just really tough to get out. And there was a really cool Phoenix card. I didn't have enough of the weaker guys to sort of build up to that. So there is some balancing act there. In other words, the impression I'm getting and from what I've read from other people's experiences is that if you want those rares and ultra rares, it's just for the collectible aspect. It's not going to help you win that much more. So that's something to sort of allay the fears of people. Also, you can get the booster packs for 79 cents from Cool Stuff. So, you don't get much. I think you get a couple cards and a couple dice associated with them, but still, that's not too bad. If you just want to feed your addiction of popping open a pack, you can do much worse. I think a Magic the Gathering pack is still like $4 or something like that. So, all in all, it's a very good game. Component-wise, actually, I'll touch on that before I end. But like I said before, crappy bags and mats that come with it. You really just need that starter set for the basic dice. You're going to want to upgrade all the other stuff right away. And, of course, buy the boosters if you want. But I can't complain. It's a good game. I don't know if it's necessarily worth the hype, but with that kind of theme, if it was themed any other way, there would not be this kind of hype. It would probably have some hype against the board game community, but amongst all the other different types of fandom, it's going to be huge. It already is huge. That's just how it's going to be. I can't wait to get my own copy of it and play it some more. I'll probably play it with my friends some more, as a matter of fact. But look into it. I would not pay eBay scalp prices for it. Just don't. I mean, it's not going anywhere. I tell people this all the time. I'm certainly not. I'm going to wait. It's, there's especially if you're really into the hobby, there's so many other games. You probably already, if you're watching this, you probably already own a ton of games that you haven't played enough of already. So do that. Don't worry about it. It's not going anywhere. The game's going to be around for a very long time and do very, very well. And they probably won't make these kind of mistakes the next time they release a main set of the game. But Marvel Dice Masters, Avengers vs. X-Men, I do highly recommend it. It's a very, very fun game. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for that game, to be honest. So, my name is Nick. This has been a pretty odd review from Board Game Brawl. And I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.